This week on My Creative Corner 3, we're going to talk about garden updates, what I've been working on, and more of why I continue to craft after all of these years. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Vicki of My Creative Corner 3. And many of you know that this is a place where we talk about quilting, crafting, and life in a northern town. But as we are coming up upon the 10-year anniversary of this podcast this fall, I thought it would be time for a little bit of a fresh new look for the blog and the podcast, as well as maybe thinking about more of what My Creative Corner 3 is all about. And after consulting with my phone, we came up with the fact that, yes, via an app, and the app suggested that My Creative Corner 3 is really more about inspiration, ideas, and living a life with an intention. That My Creative Corner 3 is a place for creativity to flow and ideas to come to life, and a space for making what matters. I thought that expresses it better than I ever could put into words. And I thought we'd hit on some of those ideas this week. This morning on June 13th, I wrote Saturday Morning Coffee with a bit of a recap of the week. Ideas with the thought that we would sit down and have a cup of coffee together and chat about what happened this week. And overall, we will talk about that. But since I talked to you last, well, I haven't been feeling the greatest. If you'll remember, in the spring, I tried to really push myself into getting in shape. Oh, what does that mean, Vicki? Well, I got on the floor and I stood up and I pulled the Achilles tendons in both of my heels. And then I got sick with a terrible virus that lasted for almost 6+ weeks. It didn't test positive as COVID, but it felt like it might have been COVID, and it triggered my long COVID. So to be honest, all of May, I was spent in the throes of long COVID relapse, meaning I was extremely tired. It took everything I could to get through the day at work, come home, sit down, take a deep breath, cook dinner, maybe crochet, maybe stitch, and then go to bed early after I fell asleep in my chair. And I've been going to a rehabilitative chiropractor, and I think this week I feel like I have turned a corner. I'm feeling much better. I stopped any exercises that puts load on my heels because walking was very difficult, and by the end of the day I couldn't hardly move when I stood up. So it's been months of this, and I went on vacation, which took the injury over the top with walking, and then I started doing squats and other simple Qigong type of exercises, and it just aggravated it again. So you know how it is. Every time you have an injury, and then you do something and re-aggravate it, well, you just added a few more weeks on the recuperation calendar. But what I learned is to slow down, heal up, rest. It isn't going to be like this forever. And, just a few things in life happen and people make comments like, gosh, you've been sick for so long. Gosh, you haven't been able to do all the things. And it really got me to push myself through when sometimes with chronic illness, you can't push yourself through. You have to sit down, rest, and pace all of the activities. And you have to weigh the battery charge going, is today the day I can do this? Is today the day I should not? And I've had many days where I've said, no, I shouldn't do it. But I did decide after having a week of feeling a little tired that the end of May was the opening game of Highland Games season. I wanted to go. It was my birthday weekend. It poured rain. It was not the best of weather. It was not the best of anything for Highland Game. Hardly anyone went to the festival, which is very sad for the festival indeed. But for my 60th birthday, at the end of the festival, I decided before the last throes of thunderstorms came through and closed the festival down, I found the crown I wanted to wear for the day in celebration of turning the big 60. It's a fluorite crown. It's heavy. It's gems, like crystals woven together on a headband. And I love it. I love it. It was perfect, lifted my spirits after the weather dampening a lot of the plans and friends and visiting that I had. It didn't happen, but that's okay. I did go visit my parents the weekend after, and we have been able to catch up with friends in other places than the Highland Game. So I really felt pretty, I don't know, sad is the word, but really introspective in the week leading up to my birthday. Like, what do I want to do for my 60th year? Which I've already planned. We've already talked about it. But there's just this thing about these milestone birthdays that make you sit down and go, whoa, how did I get here so fast? But as a true Gen Xer, I decided that the world is not ready for senior citizens who are of our generation. Gen Xers are the figure out, and also we do things by just going in and getting it done because that's what has to be done. And yet many of us are stepping back going, you know what? It's time to take care of ourselves. After a lifetime of raising children and working and trying to do the best for everyone around us, that's great. And it's a wonderful way to live until you realize you didn't invest anything in yourself. So I'm going to pick up where I left off last summer and try to find classes. This year so far, I've been teaching. I taught a couple classes at Guild. The 1 month was the improvisation class in April or May. And then in June, I reviewed the Eros Plus a Bonus quilt that was a pattern on Moda Bake Shop. And about a half a dozen people did do the project. And wow, they're sharing pictures online about the top's progress, and one finished the top. So it'd be great to have Quilt Guild next month and see how they finished it. There are some amazing quilters in my group, and they just ran with the idea and made all kinds of fabric choices that I would have never thought of. And each quilt is the personality of the quilter. I was just really happy with the 2 classes that I taught at Quilt Guild because people did try it. People went outside of their comfort zone and tried something new. The crochet class at the Veterans Women's Retreat was a little bit different. It was more a class in resilience and trying something new, even if it was uncomfortable. That was hard because people really struggled with holding the yarn, keeping the tasks separate between the left and the right hand. And we didn't even get into the swatch. It was, I don't know, I expected to be able to go through chaining, single crochet, double crochet, turning a row. We didn't even get past the chain, and a couple folks who did crochet did do the extra parts and helped those who didn't. But that's also a good exercise in patience and helping people who were struggling. I would still like to teach a beginner crochet class again. I think I would do it in a little bit different venue and have a fewer number of people there and try it again. I'm left-handed, and that's a whole nother thing for a class of right-handed people. Can you believe since the last time I talked to you, let's jump into the garden segment. There was hardly any growth in the garden. In fact, there were still frost warnings that kind of deformed a couple of my perennials in my little cottage border garden that I have. It's flowers and greenery. And guess what? Here we are a month later, and it is looking like it's been growing for months. It's amazing to me how the plants here know, because nature, that we only have 90 days of summer, and it came really late. Spring didn't even show up until practically Memorial Day. And then the freeze and frost warnings left about the 1st of June. And in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, the plants have matured. They're growing. The garden's filled in. We were inundated with weeds, and I had to enlist help with my husband once they got big enough to what we knew we needed to get rid of. And now I have all of the iris blooming except for the yellows. They come last. It's amazing. This year has been a wonderful year for iris. It is so full and just thick and blooms 3 or plus, 2 to 3 on a stem. I haven't seen iris bloom this well in a long time. Then we have the early yellow hybrid daylilies are blooming. My poppies that are that really vibrant red-orange, they're blooming. We had candy tufts that bloom. The hostas and everything are growing in. I have some early little mini sedums that will be getting ready to bloom yellow and pink. And I have a rabbit this year in my garden. After many years of not having rabbits, it's nibbling off the columbine. I'll be lucky to get a bloom, but I don't care. The wildlife coming to the garden is amazing. So I have plants coming up that I don't remember moving or planting. Maybe the birds help to move them around because our bird feeders are in fact in the garden. And it's just been a riot of wildlife, birds, bees, insects, all kinds of things. And yet this year is the worst year ever outside. And in town, I hear also, because I live in the city, ticks. Ticks in Michigan this year are horrific. In fact, my husband golfs and has been in the woods to check on his trail cameras and stuff. Wow, he came home with a whole bunch of ticks. I thought we got them all off, but guess where I found one? Crawling up the curtains in my sewing room. I had a freak out. I wanted to burn the house down, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I had the house sprayed outside with the bug shield and protection because also I found some weevils starting to come in the house. And if we find any more ticks in the house, it's going to be an additional trip here with granules. But, we may look at Lowe's. He said our yard doesn't really have a lot of areas where he would be concerned about ticks. So maybe that was a hitchhiker that came in on my husband's clothes because he's out in the woods and grasses more than I am. So anyway, ticks and bugs. That's the one thing that summer has been bringing that I am not a fan of. And also the little gnats have come in. So I have a old-fashioned flypaper around my houseplants to keep them at bay. So the garden has definitely been going great guns, and we got the first level of weeding done. My husband bought a weed burner. It's been raining off and on for a week. Excuse me. And when he comes home from this week's Highland game in Chicago, he's going to get it out and just kind of go through the garden and try to burn off the grasses and other really pesky weeds that I really can't get pulled. And right now I can't dig a whole lot up. So together we're making it to where it's presentable. Yes, he went to Chicago for a Highland Games in Naperville. What a riot. He went down there Thursday and he drove through the worst storms of the Midwest, got to his hotel, 4th floor, and a tornado warning came. Down in West Michigan were also some terrible storms, but my family is all safe. Thank you. But I do feel for those who have had tornadoes and terrible storms and wind damage, because I have been through that and I know how difficult it is. We're still cleaning up. In fact, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, we had 2 more trees completely die, dry, dead. And that was the ice storm that we had a year and a half ago in April. Yeah, a year ago, April. That just weighed heavy on all the trees. 2 more have died from the damage, and that was more money to have them professionally removed because they were very close to the house between me and my neighbor's property. I'm so thankful again. We've been very lucky that we've got trees removed and did the old strike while the iron is hot, and they had a minute and took them down, and we had a horrendous thunderstorm roll through with high winds, and it would have blown huge branches, if not knocking tops of these trees over on property or people, and we do not want any of that. So I'm thankful that we were able to hire it done. I was able to hire out after attempt of my husband trying to climb a 17-foot ladder, and he got the dizzies. We got the starlings out of the soffit. Finally, the little buggers keep damaging it and getting in there, but I think this year we've got it to where they will not come back. And if I have to, I'm going to buy a plastic owl and stick it on my porch, because I understand they may help deter them. But they did a great job. They had 5 babies. They keep flying around the yard and going through and eating all of the bugs and grubs in my grass. We're still working on trying to get the patch of land ready to plant clover. And you know what? I realized that part of being the age my husband and I are is that it's not going to get done on a fast timetable. And we have a little more time, but things take a lot longer. And there's things that need to be done to prep the area. So hopefully we can get the clover planted before the scorching days of July. And I'm very, very happy with the progress that the garden and our property has made with its minor improvements. It's amazing to me how big a deal trying to hire somebody is around our little town. It's a real big deal. And my husband has his list of things to do in between Highland Games, and I know we will check a few of them off. Well, I have made space in my schedule, and slowly and not rushing and enjoying the process to craft and create. And I'm really working on this year is the year of finishing. After not being able to hurriedly get the fantabulous Scrappy Stars done because I did not feel well, that Quilt Along ended in April, and I just finished putting together that quilt. It's really one of the best patterns, and Angel of Halo Inspirations did a great job. The free pattern has been taken down, and I believe she is going to have it come up later as a paid pattern. It's gorgeous. You can paper piece or traditionally piece. I even did the Dresden plate. It was not as hard as I thought. I did use a paper piecing page of Angel's making, and it worked out very well. And it's a great scrap buster. The other thing I did over the last month is I made 144 of color wash chips. This is what they're called. They're 3.5-inch little improv blocks, kind of an improv one-round log cabin that is inspired by Terry Rowland of Terry Quilt. She has a YouTube channel and is on all social media. And she has a series on YouTube about making these. Another great scrap buster. But this is the thing about the success of this quilt, I think, is that you need a ton of scraps. Well, I've managed my scrap down to just a little bit of scraps. And so of the 144 blocks I got, all of them were different from the people I swapped with from the Facebook group Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. She does a great job with her YouTube channel and has tons of scrap busting ideas. What I like about these little color wash chips is they're easy. They don't take a lot of high functioning brain power when you're not feeling great. And then you don't even need the ruler until the very end. And then you square it up to 3.5 inches. I use scissors. They're a little wonky, and that's what makes the quilt. It's like a little mini improv block. So I will start playing with those later on this year after I get a few other finishes done. So in the sewing and quilting department, that's what I have finished. Crochet department, I finished 6 towel toppers. And let me tell you something interesting. Appliances back in the day that most of the free patterns are based on had thin little bars or handles that you would wrap the crochet towel topper. Remember those where you cut a hand towel, a kitchen hand towel in half, and then you crocheted a top with a strap and you looped it around the oven door or your refrigerator or another appliance that had a bar that you opened with. Well, I realized I had to redo several of the straps because my kitchen appliances have really wide handles. And so I made the tops a little bit bigger and longer to accommodate the straps, aka I had to modify the pattern, which in crochet I'm not as good at as I am in quilting. So I got 6 of them done with 2 different methods, one with 1 strand of cotton yarn and one with 2 strands. And I sent them off to the person that I'm gifting them to and said, try them out. Which one do you like the best? The single strand, the double strand, super long strap, or a little shorter strap? And then I used a really large, oversized button with a light finish faux wood. And I think they look fresh and modern and not totally from the 70s. For the mother of a friend of mine. So we'll see what they like, and then I have a few more ready to make to see, what fits her stove and refrigerator and what thickness of yarn. Then I started getting out the Plymouth Encore yarn it's a strawberry variegated. It's pink and white. 75% acrylic, but it's got 25% wool. I love working with this yarn because sometimes 100% wool gets to me. And I just crocheted as many granny squares as I had out of the skeins I had left over from overbuying the wrap I knitted last year. And I have 25 granny squares, and I am not getting any ideas on a reel I made on Facebook, but it's like, what should I do with the 25 granny squares? I have them in a 5x5 setting, but I have one skein of yarn left. Should I do 6x5 and make it 30 in a rectangle? Should I make it into like a long shawl? I don't know. I even consulted Google AI and ChatGPT and Claude. I've been playing around with all three because we're going to have to use AI at work and I need to know how to use it. And I got a few ideas, but I am not so sure. I'm a very large size person, so making like a little shrug out of 25 or 26 squares, I don't think I have enough yarn, and I don't want to buy more. I have maybe a towel topper, maybe a table topper, or maybe something to go is like a throw. I don't know. Do you have any ideas? Granny squares are like my therapy when my brain is incredibly overwhelmed. Sometimes my neurology needs to calm down. And the one thing I taught in my crochet class is some of these projects like sewing, quilting, knitting, and crochet, once you know the basic skill, it's like a meditation in disguise. And I approach them as a meditative process, a place to just get into the flow where I am nothing but in the moment and so into it. You could lose a long time of your day if you didn't have other demands. And you could spend hours working on it, or until my back says I got to move around out of the sewing chair. But the same with crochet, and I find it to be very, very therapeutic. I like just knitting stockinette strips too. I have one that I don't know how to finish it, and I may just leave it as is and use it as a on some of my wood furniture for like a doily is not what I'm looking for, but a table topper. So any ideas in 25 plus a skein of yarn? I could just crochet them together and put a real wide border on it. Oh, I don't know. There's an idea. And I have in the back of my mind of going to the pottery studio this summer and making some simple projects just for a few hours while the weather is good. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I did a mini mystery and I bought fat quarters from the quilt shop to ensure success, because anyone who's done a mystery knows unless the directions or the presentation is really, really good, you can really mess up the choices you make and have an absolute disaster. So it was the M50 mystery, and the quilt shop that I have near me is the Mystery 50 group for Compass Star Quilt Shop. It was a free mini quilt. It's only 22 inches, but it'll be perfect for a display at work on the door of my office. They're having a fall quilt along where you have to buy $50 worth of items at the quilt shop. I'm not sure I'm going to do the full-size quilt because I have the fabric challenge for the Quilt Guild. Yeah, we're back in quilting here because I forgot about these two things. And I have a fabric pull for the color challenge, and I think that is the only start I want to do for the rest of the year. And also Quilt Guild is doing a red, white, and blue 250th years of our country as a patriotic block. Each of us are going to do one 12-inch block, and I'm searching for my block. Do you have a suggestion about a block that could be fun for a patriotic quilt? The quilts we make as challenges or like this for the Quilt Guild will be displayed in our local library for March. So I got to get a move on that fabric challenge. Anyway, the Mystery 50 is a great Mystery, I can't recommend it enough. If you want to try it, they do a great presentation on how to pick from your scraps, or you can go to the quilt shop and buy fabric. So I enjoyed it. And the last creative thing that I am doing is learning how to make sourdough bread. I've got my starter is healthy and strong. I'm going to try to make sourdough bread tomorrow. It's turning out to be actually not as stressful as I thought it would be. It's very relaxing, and time is not that great. You just have to have a period of time to be able to stretch and fold it for a couple of hours and let it do a bulk fermentation before you put it in the fridge overnight. And that's what I've been doing. I've been using some of the discard and had success making muffins, or a pan of things, batter that could be a muffin, but it's not because, muffins are hard with I don't have the papers, and it's just easier to throw that mix into one little 9x9 baking pan. So my takeaway is give yourself time, space, let yourself heal. Try new things. I never thought I would be into sourdough, but it's so much fun. And I don't have to make a loaf all the time. You can just feed the starter once a week and keep it in your fridge for the day that you have time and the energy to make it. What do you find yourself holding space for in your creative moments? I have gardening right now, crocheting, and I am making more grannies for my cardigan, which I hope to have ready for the cooler weather this fall. I hope you have time every day, hopefully 15 minutes or more, to just create, dream, and live your day with intention. Be creative, everyone.